The world celebrates International Literacy Day while Houthis depleting education in Yemen is non-stop. Houthi militia deprives millions of Yemeni children from access to education. The joint forces take up fierce fightings against Houthi rebels in different fronts in Hudaydah. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shaza Abdelbey. The world is celebrating International Literacy Day while the war has flattened everything in Yemen, including the education system. Millions of children are out of school. They are either recruited by Houthi rebels or victims of child labor, as some want to support their families. The following report tries to focus on the bitter reality of education in Yemen.
Backwardness is hitting Yemen again in the age of science. While the world is celebrating the International Day of Literacy, the country is returning back more than 100 years because of the Houthi rebellion. The 8th of September was proclaimed International Literacy Day by UNESCO in 1966. The aim of this celebration is to remind communities of the importance of literacy for individuals and societies, and the need for intensified efforts towards more literate societies. The day is a call to educate people and give them access to quality education. This access to quality education or even literacy is a global basic right for every child, including girls, displaced, and those with disabilities. But yet, the dogmatic mindset of Houthis is an exclusionist one, a mindset which sees Houthis as the legitimate rulers who inherit this divine right by relating to the Prophet. To dominate Yemenis, they have to spread this way of thinking. They already have done this in education. Houthis' manipulation in the educational process in the country is continuing. They introduce changes to the content and they neglect all the tools of basic education. Educational facilities are poor, while the pressure is mounting on the government-run schools after the fees of the private ones increased. There are no classes, and the parents are suffering to secure a place for their children. As to the teacher, they are underpaid and are trying hard to cope with inflation. Moreover, the school books are not available, and the parents have to go to the black market in order to secure one. If available, the book includes materials that incite hatred, sectarianism, and aggression. This Literacy Day is a call for the international community to stop Houthis from attacking schools or turning them into barracks. It is a call to ensure teachers have a regular income and students to go back to real education, to learn and to grow.
Despite hardships and ugliness of war, Yemeni women have shown great resilience not only in getting rid of social bonds to support their families, but also in working hard to get educated, even at adult education centers. More on this story is within this report.
Years after they were deprived from the right of education, regardless of their age, Yamamah and Karimah found the chance to enroll in education by joining literacy and adult education centers. Their persistence and desire have fulfilled their dream of education.
I was illiterate and I couldn't read or write. Then I joined the first grade in Al Ibda Center. I faced many difficulties in my life before learning how to read and write. Now I'm in a high school where learning has become a priority for me. I didn't know how to read or write, but after joining the center I became able to read and write. The first difficulties I faced was studying, but after time it became easier and now I'm at the last stage.
In recent years, the enrollment of adults in educational centers in Al-Mahra has remarkably increased, as some of these centers receive female students from several governorate districts. Students must go through multiple educational stages with different appropriate curricula.
Illiteracy is a social issue and we're trying our best to eliminate it. Recently, there's a great demand for literacy centers, as this year there are 2 classes and in each class there are the equivalent of 15 students. Meanwhile, some students completed the follow-up stages and joined basic schools, while some completed secondary school. Others continue their education at the university level. Here we invite everyone to join illiteracy eradication centers because of its special importance in a science and technology era.
Educating adultery aims to eradicate illiteracy, dry up its sources, raise the standard of living for those enrolled, and provide them with life skills. This calls to increase social awareness of the importance of education and sending elderly to join educational centers and eradicate illiteracy.
Yemeni officials responsible for the management of displacement camps in Ma'rib said that around 130,000 children will not able to join schools this year. Officials added that Houthi attacks drove more people into displacement, and these new waves overpowered the capacity of schools. They outlined the local authorities are working to prepare open-air classes for these children. Since February, Houthi rebels have been trying to advance into oil-rich Ma'rib, but are confronted with heavy resistance. Access to education is a basic right for every child. However, this is not the case in Yemen since the Houthis controlled the capital Sana'a. Thousands of children have been denied that basic right. The following report attempts to explore the negative impact of war on children.
6 years on, Yemeni children's education has become one of the greatest casualties of Yemen's devastating and ongoing conflict. According to a new report published by UNICEF today, over 2 million school-age girls and boys are now out of school as poverty, conflict, and lack of opportunities disrupt their education. This is double the number of out-of-school children in 2015 when the conflict started. Also, access to quality education is a basic right for every child, including girls, displaced children, and those with disabilities. Sir Philip Duhamel, UNICEF representative to Yemen, said that the conflict has a staggering impact on every aspect of children's lives. Yet, access to education provides a sense of normalcy for children in even the most desperate contexts and protects them from multiple forms of exploitation. Keeping children in school is critical for their own future and the future of Yemen. The report highlights that when children are not in school, the consequences are dire for both their present and their future. Girls are being forced into early marriage, where they remain trapped in a cycle of poverty and unfulfilled potential. Boys and girls are more vulnerable to being coerced into child labor or recruited into the fighting. More than 3,600 children in Yemen were recruited by Houthi militia in the past 6 years. To make matters worse, 2/3 of teachers in Yemen, over 170,000 teachers in total, haven't received a regular salary for more than 4 years because of the conflict and the geopolitical divides. This puts around 4 million additional children at risk of disrupted education or dropping out as unpaid teachers quit teaching to find other ways of providing for their families. Children who do not finish their education are trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle of poverty. If out-of-school children or those who have dropped out recently are not properly supported, they may never return to school. The combined effects of the prolonged conflict and the latest assault on education by Houthi rebels and COVID-19 pandemic will have devastating and long-lasting effects on the learning, as well as the mental and the physical well-being of children and adolescents in Yemen. In the report, UNICEF calls for all stakeholders in Yemen to uphold children's right to education and work together to achieve lasting and inclusive peace. This includes stopping attacks on schools, ensuring teachers get a regular income so that children can continue to learn and grow, and for international donors to support education programs with long-term funding.
The joint forces defended strikes of Houthi militia in Hais after carefully monitoring movements of the rebels in the area. This constitutes violations of the Stockholm Agreement. The military media of the joint forces reported that the Iran-backed militia resumed their miserable attempts to set up defenses. In addition, the joint forces launched strikes on the militia rebels, causing losses among them. In Hodeidah, the Houthi militia shelled with heavy artillery the residential areas in the south of the city. Local sources added that the militia bombarded civilian houses in Manazir village, caused destruction in a number of houses and people's properties. According to the sources, Houthi heavy shelling forced some families to move to more safe places. In Ma'rib, more than 60 Houthis were killed in coalition airstrikes. Meanwhile, military sources said that the government forces backed by tribes are battling Houthis in Al-Qassara front and inflicted losses among the militia elements. According to AFP, most of the clashes took place during the past 24 hours. This comes after the militia mobilized more troops from 4 cities under their control and moved them to Ma'rib fronts. In Ma'rib, the Human Rights Office denounced the international silence regarding the crimes and violations of the Houthi militia against civilians in the city. According to Saba news agency, it was reported that the human rights team carried out a field visit to document the violations against civilians in Rahba, southwest of Ma'rib. The director of the Human Rights Office in Ma'rib criticized the international silence regarding the crimes and humanitarian violence committed by the Houthi militia against civilians. Houthi militia recently targeted houses of civilians with missiles and drones, that inflicting casualties including children and women. Further, the International Organization for Migration announced the displacement of 471 families during the past week due to the escalation of hostilities in Ma'rib. Coming next, Houthi rebels continue their mad campaign against journalists.
رسالتي على منطقة الروضة استهدف الأطفال الأبرياء اللي يلعبوا في الشارع يدعي للسلام يقول له للسلام يقتل أطفالنا يقتل أطفالنا الأبرياء.
أنا قلت افتجعت ولا أقول معي واحد صاروخ ثاني طلعت البيت حقنا جالس أنا ألعب أنا وأصحابي والصاروخ انطرح.
Welcome back. Since Houthi rebels seized the capital Sana'a in 2015, human rights violation acts have been committed on a daily basis. As a thing which received local, regional, and international, these violations reached their climax with targeting journalists. This report has more on some of the recent Houthi militia violations that targeted journalists in the country.
The Houthi violations of journalists in Yemen is increasing on a daily basis, especially against those they consider opponents and involved in the conflict. According to the sources, it's relieved that the media freedoms in Yemen have been subjected to more than 1,400 violations since the beginning of the war, including 38 killings of journalists, photographers, and media workers. Since the outbreak of the civil war in 2015, Yemen has become one of the most dangerous places for the lives and safety of journalists, not to mention the rampant cases of danger, which has led to a scarcity of news coverage of the Yemeni crisis. In its latest report, the Yemeni Journalists Syndicate monitoring 112 cases of violations during the year 2020. We and the Yemeni Journalists Syndicate condemn this ongoing violence against media workers in Yemen. All kidnapped journalists must be released and the death sentences abolished immediately. We all urge the authorities to take urgent steps to ensure the safety of journalists and help them practice their job without being scared of any Houthi violations.
A human rights report accused the Houthi militia of causing severe damage to agricultural lands in Dubab district west of Taiz. The report highlighted that the militia of planting mines extensively and randomly in the area. The report issued by Muwatna Organization, the Gulf Research Center, and Intisal Foundation for International Rights said that the discriminate use of landmines in the region lead to death and injury of cattle, spreading fear among farmers and preventing them from access their agricultural lands. This report, entitled Makers of Starvation, considered the Houthi militia's behavior as violation of international humanitarian law. The Houthi militia kidnapped the artist Yusuf al-Badji as part of a campaign that target artists in their areas of control. Local sources said that members of the Houthi militia kidnapped the artist al-Badji from his house in Sana'a because of his appearance in a TV program. This comes days after the arrest of the artist Asil Abu Bakr. The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 52 new cases of COVID-19 in 8 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 30 cases were recorded in Hadramaut, 8 in Ma'rib, 4 in Aden, 4 in Al-Bayda, 2 in Lahj, 2 in Shabwa, 1 in Taiz, 1 in Al-Dala. Also 4 deaths were recorded plus 21 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 8,101, including 1,523 deaths and 4,982 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The world celebrates International Literacy Day while Houthis depleting education in Yemen is non-stop. Houthi militia deprives millions of Yemeni children from access to education. The joint forces take up fierce fighting against Houthi rebels in different fronts, Wadi Hudaydah. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.